Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the first ever QuickDisTakes Podcast. I'm your host, Tim LeBeau, joined today by Mr. Dan Albanez.
Happy to be here today to talk about the latest Walt Disney World news.
Cool. So today on the docket, we have a little Epcot concept art we want to talk about. We have some Galaxy Edge news that has a lot of Star Wars geeks pretty excited. We're going to try a little thing we like to call 50 tweaks for 50 years for the Walt Disney Resort. And we'll talk a little bit about what we think is maybe overrated or underrated in the parks. So,
I'm really excited to talk about everything that we have today. I definitely feel like Walt Disney World is in a period of growth and expansion that hasn't had in some time, so now is the time to be talking about it.
I agree. So we got this concept art in front of us here. We're looking at it. And Dan and I have talked many years about Disney off, obviously, the podcast, the format. And looking at Epcot, it is something that I have always said, and Dan's pretty much agreed, that it has needed a large overhaul. It is a park where, I think I said the other day, I never hated something so much that I actually love. It feels like it's very outdated and needs a little TLC. So when we get this concept art, I think a lot of people, including ourselves, were very excited to hear it.
I feel like Epcot updates for a long time have been rather hodgepodge and not focused on one singular idea. So I'm happy now that we have a unified kind of vision going forward for what we're going to be seeing with Epcot. I like this new entranceway a lot. It really brings back the original 1980s World Fair kind of flavor that Epcot had. Especially seeing that in the original logos that you see in the flags around the entrance area. All the greenery here also stands out to me because the landscaping in the entrance area to Epcot has long been very bad. The Leo Legacy gets in the way. It kind of confuses the guest pathway entrances. And with all this greenery and shrubbery, they're definitely going to have a lot of opportunities to show off the backstage work during festivals when they have topiaries out. And a lot of new photo opportunities, especially with the returned fountain that we have.
Oh, I think the fountain, my personal opinion, the fountain is like the greatest thing ever. Those, what would you even call those? Those stone figures that you would walk into the park and see with all the silver pictures just made me feel so 90s. Like you couldn't get any more 90s than that. Like what we maybe envisioned things would look like or feel like in the future in the 90s, and it just doesn't like carry over very well today. Now I know a lot of people paid for those pictures. Actually had friends that paid for those pictures. You probably have friends that paid for those. Maybe you did, I don't know. But I'm so glad to see those go. Those were just an eyesore, and honestly, crowds flowing through that area just didn't really have a good crowd flow. Like there's no, people just go in random directions. Like everyone is just crammed, bottlenecked in that area. And this way here with this new concept art that I see, I think you got two throughways, right and left. Maybe people will even be smart about it and actually use one side for kind of more of an exit area and an entrance area, hopefully. But either way, it just looks like there's a lot more room to walk, and there's a lot more things to see, and a lot more beautiful things to see than those just what I consider kind of hideous decorations they had out front there. So I'm definitely glad to see that change being made. As far as Future World goes, another kind of eyesore for the park. And from this concept art, I don't know what your opinion is on this, but it looks like they're going to remove innovations on both sides.
I wanted to bring that up as well. The after show building for Spaceship Earth also appears to be absent from this. And I have to consider, are they going to take out all of these buildings, or is this a more artistic representation? I have heard a lot of rumors that Innovations is going to be fully or partially removed, but I'm not sure that all of Innovations, as well as the show building, would be removed. Though I don't think that after ride building for Spaceship Earth has a lot to offer guests in 2019. There's a lot of games in there, a lot of activities, but a lot of it has not been updated for well over 10 years. But I do like this sense of open space as you travel under Spaceship Earth. though I'm not sure it's going to translate as much outside of blue sky thinking as we see here in this art.
Yeah, do you think? No, you bring up a good point. 'Cause I didn't actually notice that. But do you think they're going to expand Spaceship Earth, or do you think they're just going to relocate the loading area? Like, what do you think the purpose is behind like getting rid of that whole area? And then I know I'd heard some rumors about them getting rid of kind of the post show after the ride, but I don't see, from what I can look at here, much of a loading area there. So do you think they're going to move that in another direction and possibly add some scenes to the ride, or is that just...
Well, we see a larger show, maybe not a show building, but I'm not sure the buildings on the side of Spaceship Earth currently go all the way up to the pedestal, so to speak, as they are in this art. Maybe they do. But yeah, the only real connection that I see to the ground is these pedestals and then this large column in the center under Spaceship Earth. So unless they were going with some kind of elevator up that central column, I don't really know where the load or unload areas would be for Spaceship Earth, to be honest with you. It doesn't look like there's enough room there.
No, it doesn't. I brought that up because I had heard people speculate about that. And because they're going to be shutting Spaceship Earth down for 2.5 years for refurbishment, people are starting to guess that maybe they're going to add scenes beyond the scenes we have and possibly a new loading area. But either way, any of it's welcome as far as I'm concerned. There is much needed work. Spaceship Earth's my personal favorite ride in Epcot, and I think that it's great as it is, but cannot wait to see the new changes there. So hopefully they'll do something with that and maybe give us a little more to take in that ride.
100% agree, Tim. Spaceship Earth is also my favorite ride in Epcot. What I think is kind of interesting here that I have not seen talked about is this point of view suggests to me that it's approximately where this proposed Epcot hotel would be from.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
So would this be a view? Do you think that guests would be able to rent a room and have this view of the entrance?
That's a good point.
Epcot?
That's a good point. That makes a lot of sense. If you look at it, it's as scenic as you could possibly imagine. I mean, I can imagine a deluxe or a DVC going right there and people paying boku bucks to have that, access to Epcot that quickly. I mean, it would be even closer than, where all the Beach Club, Yacht Club, Boardwalk area. What's the International Gateway? Is that what they call that entrance on the right side of the park there?
Yes.
Yeah, so it would be even closer than that. And I think people will, people will pay money to have that type of proximity to a park. So I think that hotel is going to happen sooner or later. And I think you bring up a good point because that looks very much like you would be on a maybe 8th or 9th floor of a hotel that was already rumored to be in that general area. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see that coming.
Do you think there's any significance that you can see the dome for Wonders of Life here, but there's no real hint of mission space? I can identify Wonders of Life, and I assume that's Test Track, as well as the Imagination Pavilion.
That's true, too. So seeing this overhaul in general is just very exciting to me. I try not to get too critical on all these kind of things because I do love the parks, I promise you that. But as you watch my channel, you might think otherwise, but I can't stand when I see a company like Disney that has all the money in the world let things kind of like slip to the wayside a little bit, like with how I kind of feel about the land pavilion and kind of like what's happened with Nemo and the whole just look of the park in general just really needs a good little coat of paint, so to speak. So it makes me happy to see this, but I just hope and I do know we kind of do know that this is just the beginning of an overall overhaul that we're going to be getting. And I think it's just going to be like much needed, and it's going to make the park so much more viable going forward, and make the average family who maybe doesn't love Disney as much as us come to this park and say, hey, this is a great place to be. This is really cool. I want to come back. They're going to make more generations fall in love with this, and I think they know that, and I think that's why they're paying attention to these types of things.
I think Disney hit a home run with this new entrance area, I think it does two things. One, it updates it to make it fresh and new, as Tim said, for all these new visitors, but it also stays true to the original idea of Epcot of being a World's Fair and a world showcase, of introducing you to new concepts. I'm excited that everything in this picture is going to be new. We're going to have an updated Spaceship Earth. We're going to eventually have new monorails coming in the next couple of years, and we're going to have this new entrance area.
Maybe a new Imagination Pavilion somewhere down the road.
It could happen.
Maybe, no.
Epcot has a phased rollout coming definitely over the next couple of years. Guardians of the Galaxy is going to be opening. This entrance area is going to be opening, and then I really feel like they're going to tackle that right side of the park in Future World. And I'm excited to see what's coming next in the next couple of years for Disney's 50th for Epcot.
Now, am I like the only when I consider myself diehard Disney fan that is just pumped about the Guardians of the Galaxy? I know people don't think it belongs in the park. I don't know if you're one of them. I don't think we've ever talked about this, but I cannot wait for that ride to open. I think it's a much needed e-ticket for Epcot, and just hopefully they mix, like they say they're going to do. I hope they mix that perfect, maybe a little family thrill with what they're saying is going to be an educational aspect. I'm not quite sure how they're going to pull that off, but they are promising that that's what's going to be there, and fingers crossed that's the case, because to me, Mission Space is a throwaway attraction. You get that over there. That's my own personal opinion. I have no interest in going on that attraction. I don't even go on that attraction. I go every year. I couldn't tell you the last time I've been on it. Does nothing for me. Test Track's fine for the most part, though I do think 2.0 is starting to get a little dated itself. But that's another discussion for another time. But I am so pumped for this Guardians of the Galaxy. First of all, my last trip down a couple of weeks ago, you see the building come together. You see the launch tunnel coming together. It looks cool. Looks like it's going to be fairly intense, although I guess they are trying to stay on the kind of family concept, so I hear. But it is, to me, the future where Epcot's going with incorporating IPs into, hopefully, like you said, the original concepts of what Epcot was meant to be when it was built.
I feel like the inclusion of IPs into Epcot, at least in the foreseeable future, is inevitable.
I agree.
I'm excited for Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm just a little worried about that left side of the park. You have Test Track. I agree. Test Track 2.0 now is starting to feel a little dated, with a lot of the graphics for the computer design parts starting to feel a little bit old. And Mission Space, you're right, is not drawing in a lot of seats. I personally will always ride Mission Space every time I visit Walt Disney World, only because I love the ride's line much more than I love the ride.
Yeah, the queue is much better.
And I'm a huge space nerd, so I'm just always going to go.
Fair enough.
But the ride itself is not particularly good. That entire side of the park doesn't have a lot in the way to offer kids. So this new play pavilion, maybe that'll balance it a little bit, but definitely more family options I feel needed on that side of the park especially.
Now that new play pavilion, now that you brought it up, have you seen Wreck-It Ralph 2?
Yes, I have. It looks exactly like
I was going to say,
Wreck-It
does it not look like the internet in Wreck-It Ralph 2? Now, I don't want to take full credit for grabbing that concept, because I've listened to a few podcasts over the last few weeks and people have brought that up. And then when I actually watched the Wreck-It Ralph last week, and I seen that and I was like, they couldn't be more right. There's no doubt in my mind, I don't know about you, that they're going to somehow incorporate Wreck-It Ralph into that play pavilion, which, once again, if it does its job, I'm all for. I'm not sure what the staying power would be for Wreck-It Ralph over the next 20 years, but I guess the play pavilion would be easily overhauled if need be to even another Marvel property, or pretty much anything they want to do at that point. I don't think there's going to be any solid attraction coming to that area. At least they haven't made any announcements yet.
That's what I get out of the play pavilion, that it seems to be designed specifically to attract younger guests and the families of younger guests, while Guardians of the Galaxy, while Test Track is pulling a lot of the teenager and older guest kind of crowd. I'm kind of worried about this play pavilion being a Dinoland USA 2.0 situation.
Boy.
To be honest with you, I'm worried about it being...
Please no.
not really themed so much as it being a space which is easily re-themed.
Like, could it be like IP du jour, you know? Like, oh, this is the big movie this year that might not be big next year, so let's shuffle some things in there and get the kids excited and like overlays. Like when you go down to Disney Springs with the Void, like now they have a Wreck-It Ralph, they had Star Wars, they could have Toy Story 4 there next year if they wanted to. It's a very quick, interchangeable thing. I kind of think that you're onto something. I think that's kind of where they're going to go with this. And it might not be the worst idea, too. At least it's not sitting there dormant.
No, I agree. It's better than nothing. I just feel like it's going to mainly be character meet and greets, some interactive play areas, and it's going to have this nondescript kind of cyberpunk theming on the inside that you're going to be able to put whatever you want over it. I don't really feel like it is doing a good job of advancing Epcot's brand, but I certainly welcome something new in a space that has not been used for many years besides to host cooking demonstrations for the most part.
True. I just want to say I do get very nervous though when I hear interactive attractions, because how quickly do those generally get outdated? Like if they're not, changed out in say 4 or 5 years, next thing you know, you just, in there farting around with something the technology's just old. So hopefully they kind of keep tabs on that and stay on top of that. But the overall idea for now, I think, like you said, we're not doing cooking demonstrations. We got a reason to go in there, and soon a reason just to go into that area of the park in general. So hopefully that takes care of that crowd control. Now, another thing I thought of when you were speaking of mission space. Do you think, you had mentioned you go in because you like the queue. I think a lot of people do go in because they like the queue. Do you think the restaurant will maybe help that craving a little bit more? Maybe if you experience the restaurant, do you think people aren't going to care? Do you think it will help the attraction? I think the lines will maybe get a little bit longer because you kind of have the restaurant over there and people maybe get in the mood for a whole space thing. They go on a little adventure on that. Or do you think it's just, I think the intensity is what scares a lot of people too, and that the fact that the easier one is kind of boring. I can't speak towards the intensity because I'm too scared to go on it. But do you think that's what deters people from that attraction? Or do you think it's just the special effects, or I should say the graphics on the actual screen and all that kind of stuff, just kind of feel meh,
I definitely know people who avoid the ride because it always makes them sick every single time that they ride on it. There's just certain kinds of display effects and certain kinds of rides that have this effect on people. All the people that I know that get sick always on Mission Space will always also get sick on the Simpsons ride at Universal Studios and always also got sick at the Back to the Future ride that was formerly there. So I think that's just an issue with this particular kind of ride technology. But the ride itself, you experience a lot of G-forces, you experience weightlessness, and you essentially look at a picture through a little window.
So you've been on the intense version?
I've been on both.
I
Yes.
didn't. Okay, because I'm going to be on. I'll go on anything known to man. I will not, because of the stories I've heard from like people at work or people that we know in our lives. Like people have told me it's ruined their like afternoon. They got off and they went back to their hotel and didn't go back to the parks till the next day. So I hear that and I'm like, no thanks.
I've been on the orange mission, the old green mission, and the new green mission.
So you took your daughter on the green
I took
mission,
my daughter on the new green mission, which she's now tall enough for. They put a little booster seat under you.
Oh yeah.
It's you essentially are treated to some nice nighttime views of the planet Earth, and then when you attempt to land back in Florida, you experience some turbulence, which replaces the turbulence on Mars. I don't believe that the actual actions of the ride were altered at all, so they had to make a new video to fit the original actions of the orange mission.
And that one doesn't move. That one just kind of tilts and back and forth. It doesn't do any kind of spinning at all, or is it like a less intense spinning? Or
if I recall correctly, you do experience some weightlessness. You don't experience the amount of G-force pushing down on you during launch, but you don't experience as much weightlessness for sure.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't feel like the rides, even someone who is a huge space nut like myself, I don't feel like Mission Space is offering a lot to any Disney guests.
No, once again, I love going on pretty much anything. Like I'm all about the rides, and my daughter, myself, I have brought Aria on the less intense ride before the overhaul, or the overhaul on that particular ride anyway. And we were just all kind of like, eh, so we haven't done it since. That part of the park is basically, we only visit that part of the park to go on test track. And while we're over in that part of the park, we'll talk about that real quick. You know, everyone makes the jokes, Test Track 2.0, it's like a Tron, you know, it's basically Tron in a car. And I think we all, to some degree, can't argue that it's kind of a true thing. But do you, like, I feel personally that is getting so outdated. I like, it offers a thrill at the end, so there's always that. But I feel like there's something they could do. I don't know, not quite sure what it is, maybe with the design of the car and all that aspect, even though that is fun, where they could make it a little more up to date. Like, it doesn't feel, it just feels old. I don't know if you agree with me. I just feel like it feels old. It's not awful. It's still worth riding, but it's walking a fine line, and I'm not sure how much longer it can go, especially with everything, assuming everything else kind of around it starts, especially Guardians coming, starts to move its way up. What is that ride going to feel like in 2, 3, you know, by the 50th anniversary or just a couple of years after that, you know?
I absolutely agree that what it is for me is the graphics of all of the guest interface to design their own car. It looks old at this point. I don't know when the update was. Based upon...
No, I don't remember, but it was...
Based upon the computer, I want to say 2006, 2008, somewhere around there. And the computer graphics definitely look that old.
Dated, yeah.
I think that most of the physical elements of the ride itself could be preserved. The ride itself is still solid and good, but most computer elements could definitely use an update. I'm not sure what would update about the ride itself, though, Tim.
I don't know either. That's why I kind of like rambled a little there. But I think that, so the update, I was actually trying to see, so it reopened on December 6th, 2012. So the update was done somewhere in that 2011, 2012 window, which, I mean, by Disney overhaul terms is not actually that long ago, but maybe, you know, and that's the problem that sometimes Epcot faces, is what, that the types of things they try to do are cool when they open and tend to get outdated quickly because the world moves so fast these days. But yeah, I have honestly zero. I don't even know where to begin. Like what to even suggest. Maybe just an entirely different ride altogether. You know, I've heard people say things like, and this is obviously not feasible, but you know, put the Cars ride in Test Track because it's the same ride system. Obviously, that's not going to work. That's ridiculous. But the general idea of making it more enjoyable and appealing is certainly something that they should look into. So I think that you will see some type of new version of Test Track somewhere in the next 10 years, hopefully, or a new ride altogether. But as far as my own ideas, I have zero clue. Like you said, I don't know. I don't know what to put there, but something needs to be done somewhere down the line, especially if you're going to start putting, like, Spaceship Earth gets a facelift, and then they do something with the innovations area, and they're bringing in Guardians, which is probably going to be, I'm going to guess, probably amazing. Anything new they do these days is pretty good. So when you start comparing and you put something, it's like when you go on Dinosaur. I love Dinosaur, right? I'm sure you must love Dinosaur. But then you go over to Flight of Passage. I know you haven't gotten the opportunity to ride this yet, but you get on that ride and you're like, there's nothing anywhere around this area of the park that can compare to this. It's like a whole new world. And I get that's going to happen. There's nothing you can do. You can't overhaul everything at the same time. But that ride is ultimately going to meet that fate. And it's coming soon because I think Guardians is due to be open 2021, I think. So that's something to definitely keep in mind. Something that I'm sure fans are going to harp on once they get to that point where that ride is open. So
I definitely understand what you're saying. If you think about a lot of the line queue elements, And a lot of the audio animatronics for dinosaurs certainly looks like it comes from 1998.
I love it, but it's certainly, I mean, I love that ride. I have some soft spot in my heart, but it definitely does look like it comes from 1998.
I don't, there's just certain aspects of like how you go about building rides, I feel like are going to key you in a lot to when the ride came from in the future. So I've seen a lot of the preview images for Avatar Flight of Passage. It has been open twice during my visits, but once was, yes, when I had my daughter. She was not tall enough to go on. It was just me and my daughter on a trip, just the two of us. I definitely understand the level of theming that goes into these new projects that Disney has been working on. Epcot's always going to have trouble keeping up to these new projects because it doesn't have these massive themed lands that it can work around like the other three parks. It has these pavilions. So I feel like given enough time from the last update, Epcot is always going to struggle to seem relevant.
That's a good point. And something I've never actually thought about is you go to Frontierland, you get stuff that's themed around Frontierland. You go to Liberty Square, things centered around Liberty Square. You guys get the point. And here, you could literally be riding in a car, doing road tests, and then go across the street. Go across the way, and you're in a galaxy, doing whatever the Guardians of the Galaxy are going to be doing over there. So that's going to always be kind of an interesting thing, and I think it's a good point. And I think it's a point the park is always going to struggle with that. But I think that's why Epcot, more than any park, really needs to make sure they put the pedal to the metal when it comes to keeping up with an e-ticket style attraction. At least have a handful of them in there at all times. Which, what would you say? Frozen? Wait, maybe Frozen, Soarin', and maybe Test Track? Or, I mean, I think Frozen's an e-ticket attraction as of right now. I think we kind of agree with that.
I would agree.
Test Track, maybe.
Soarin' is often billed as an e-ticket attraction, but I feel like depending on when you go, time of the year, time of the day of the week.
Yeah, you can get on quick.
You might have no line at all for Soarin'.
I know.
I think that's why this new entrance area is going to be pulled off so well, because it has this sort of stark 1960s fresh World's Fair concept.
Oh, it's cool. It's awesome.
That is going to go well with this pavilion.
Agreed.
With these pavilions.
Yep.
I think that they're on the right ball of having a high degree of low-key theming for the entrance.
Yeah, I think that they got that part right. I think, too, do you think, well, obviously we know Ratatouille's coming. Now, I'm not even sure. Is Ratatouille considered an e-ticket attraction over in France? It might be. I'm not sure. I think it is. I know they're kind of pitching it to us as an e-ticket attraction because, I mean, in an area of the park or in a park in general, it doesn't have them. I guess e-tickets all relative based upon what you're competing against. In this park, I mean, Nemo and the Land and Imagination, they're not crowd gobblers by any stretch of the imagination. So it's not going to take much to be considered an e-ticket here. Now, Frozen, obviously, we just said, there's no doubt, Guardians of the Galaxy is going to be numero uno. That's going to be like 3-hour wait type of attraction when that opens. I mean, Frozen was for a little while, and that's kind of simmered down now to more of a 50 to 60 minute wait. But I guess the 50 to 60 minute consistent wait time is what kind of dictates an e-ticket attraction, right? That's what those are the measurements you would kind of use to whether or not, I mean, so I guess Peter Pan is an e-ticket attraction. You actually made that joke to me one day, that it is theoretically an e-ticket attraction despite being open in 1971 or the original 1955.
Yeah, I would agree. Still, that, I mean, right now, to pull off course a little bit, Peter Pan is still, I would say, the second most busy attraction in Walt Disney World, in Magic Kingdom in any given day.
I will say, not to cut you off, that if you have an issue or you go to guest relations and complain, they give you fast passes. Peter Pan is exempt. You can't use it on Peter Pan. You can't use it on Seven Dwarfs, Frozen, Flight of Passage, etc. So it is grouped in with those other rides.
I would expect that the Ratatouille ride initially is going to have a large burst of waiters and of riders and be an e-ticket attraction. I don't see it lasting as long as Frozen. I feel like Frozen was just such a popular intellectual property, and the amount of riders that you can handle on the Maelstrom's old existing technology is limited, and the new technology that they fit into the ride building for Frozen tends to break down a lot. So you will often have the ride not open at park time. You'll often have the ride break down in the middle of the day, and it certainly does not help with long wait lines. Having a brand new building, having a newer ride system to start with, and I hope having a much higher ridership number per hour.
Oh, most likely.
I feel like the crowds for Ratatouille will die down much faster for Frozen, especially also with Guardians of the Galaxy opening on the other side of the park. But you're right, there's not a lot to draw guests to. That, I think, also was a factor in how long the wait times are for Frozen. So now that you have Frozen open, that you're going to have Ratatouille and you're going to have Guardians of the Galaxy, spreading the guests out more, I think Ratatouille will not last as long as a top-level e-ticket attraction as Frozen was. Will it be kept in the same Fast Pass designation? I would feel probably it will for quite some time, just to balance people out more.
Yeah, that makes sense. And the thing, too, is I think with the staying power of an e-ticket, let's say Guardians opens up and it's great. And we'll say 3 years from now, maybe the technology of the ride's not so great, or 5 years, whatever it is. But there's going to be a thrill element. And the thrill element will always keep at least people coming just to experience the thrill element. Whereas Ratatouille is pretty much a straightforward trackless dark ride from everything I've seen on videos I've seen on YouTube. So the staying power might be a little more difficult. Also with Frozen, I was thinking about this the other day, actually. I don't want to go too much on a tangent here because we got other things to talk about, but Frozen, like you said, it's immensely popular. The trailer comes out for Frozen 2. People react. I think when that comes out, I can't help but feel it's going to be immensely popular again. And if they nail it out of if they hit it out of the park again, is replacing the old Maelstrom attraction enough for Frozen as a ride? Or should they, at that point, do you start thinking back and saying maybe this should have just got its own brand new building, brand new, ride with a longer duration, because it's short. I'm assuming you've taken Harlow, so it's short and it's good. I enjoy it. I think it's you go to Elsa's Ice Palace. I think more than we want to admit, people like to sing the songs and do all that good stuff. But that ride, especially if it's piggybacking off of Frozen 2 and that ends up being another smash hit, might not even, might need to be reconsidered for a bigger ride system, which I don't think they can do and where they're at right now, at least as far as I know.
I feel like the timing of that ride happened to work out very well because Frozen Fever lasted for so long.
Still going.
I feel like Disney has really missed the ball in the last couple of years in predicting what film properties will be super popular and having something ready in the park to go at release date for the film. So we tend to end up seeing in-park tie-ins to new films coming quite a bit later. You see that going on right now in Epcot with Mexico and the Coco ride, which was coming, now is not coming, maybe it's coming again. At some point, Grand Fiesta Tour will probably be replaced, and probably it will be Coco. But Frozen just hit that special spot. It lasted so long in popularity that the ride's opening still coincided with how popular the intellectual property was, and the lines were insane. I think the ride will definitely get a boost from Frozen 2 coming out, but it never really super died down in popularity. So on an average day, will you be able to tell a difference after Frozen 2 comes out? I'm not exactly sure that will be true. But I think they'll have enough Frozen. They have that temporary Frozen singing show at Hollywood Studios. I believe it's dismantled at this point.
No, we actually just did it.
It's still going on?
Yeah, it's actually not that bad either. Like, it's something to do at Hollywood, especially with the way that park is right now. It's something to do, and it's enjoyable. Like, people love the songs. So I go there. This is the second time we went. I actually had my aunt from Poland, and everyone had a good time. Like, people just like to sing the songs. So, like you said, Frozen's. I don't think Frozen's going anywhere. I don't think. Chances are Frozen 2 is going to be awesome. I mean, I don't want to jinx it, but I just got a feeling. And if they have more memorable songs in there, it's not going to go away. And maybe, Frozen where it's at is good enough. Definitely, like you said, the timing was right. They it was a huge hit. Maelstrom's time had kind of come anyway, and it implied that the movie took place it was more of an implication that it took place in Norway, even though they never really said it. I'm sure I got a weird feeling they're going to mention that in this next movie to kind of clarify. I wonder about that, but it fits. I think it fits, and it gets people to go there, and like there's other stuff to see in Norway Pavilion, so. You get over there because of the ride, and then you kind of, people like you and I can geek out in the little Thor Odin thing, or some of the gift shops that are not so Frozen related, or try some of the snacks they got in there. So it gets you over there, and that is, and I got a video coming out on the channel about this. That is the main point here, right? Like to get crowds into certain areas, and when crowds are not going to certain areas, you can't get angry at Disney for trying to get them to the certain area. Simple math.
No, I absolutely agree. Maelstrom's time had come. I believe it was a Fast Pass attraction up until its closing, but even as a Fast Pass thrill attraction in a park, which certainly needed more attractions, I feel like it was not pulling a lot of seats, so it made a lot of sense for Disney to switch the theme to Frozen. I feel it makes sense for Frozen to be in Norway. That's not something that ever really particularly bothered me, but I don't know going forward how much Frozen you're going to see in Disney parks. You're absolutely right. Frozen is here to stay. Is Elsa and Anna and Olaf, are they the new Snow White? Are they the new Cinderella?
That's that's funny you say that, because that's the thing. It's like it seems to want to bounce around. Well, you don't get it in Animal Kingdom, but you pretty much get it in shows at the Magic Kingdom. You get it obviously in Epcot. You get it in Hollywood Studios. So it's bouncing around, which not every intellectual property does. And if they really wanted to force it, they could probably get spent somewhere in the Animal Kingdom, but they haven't gone down that road yet. But the Frozen phenomenon is here to stay. And I think like my daughter, our daughter's generations, it is going to be, I guess their Belle or their Ariel, or if you want to go back to the Snow White. So they're not going to go anywhere. And so the decision there is good, I think, to put that in that pavilion, and I think it does offer an e-ticket type quality for now. But like you said, like everything else we talked about with Epcot, it's going to be short-lived, I think. I think you're going to need to spruce it up at some point again. Especially, have you seen the new Belle animatronic for the Beauty and the Beast attraction coming to Tokyo yet?
I have seen that.
It's insane.
The quality is insane. Not quite as insane as some of the background animation for Frozen 2, but...
Well, that did look amazing, by the way, not to cut you off.
But all the technology that they're developing out in Japan for the
it's crazy.
Looks crazy. Disney has sort of been on the path lately of developing one technology or one ride blueprint and sort of using it in two parks. The issue there with that is I believe it was developed entirely by the Japanese company that Disney runs the Japanese parks with, so Disney would need to put some money down or do some kind of other investment to get access to that technology. But it does look incredible over Tokyo Disney.
The only reason why I'm bringing that up too, we really have to end the segment about Epcot, is that the Frozen animatronics are cool, but the projection faces are starting to bother me. And then when I see Belle's face and expressions over there, I think to myself, there's no doubt in my mind, they're going to shut Frozen down at some point, and they're going to at least throw those in. I mean, I would think it's a simple fix, probably. But imagine Elsa looks great up there in her palace. But she could be moving side to side. She could be doing this Belle animatronic, literally walks. It's incredible. So... once again, things are forever changing, especially this time, this day and age. So they're going to have to look at that as another thing that's going to make rides like that look dated. And just getting back to the general point of these overhauls are really needed, and it's great to see that they're investing the money and the time into doing it. But anyway, with all that said, I think it's general consensus here is that we are excited about what's to come in Epcot, and I think a lot of you guys are probably excited as well. We're a fairly new podcast, but anyone listening wants to add to any of this conversation or ask any questions, you can hit me up at the Backside of Water on Twitter. We'll answer any questions or talk about anything you want to talk about on the following podcast. If you have any points you want to bring up, or in the comments below on the YouTube channel. Anyway, with that said, we are now going to get into the latest Star Wars Galaxy Edge news. So bringing our attention over to the more nerdier side of things, as if that wasn't Epcot conversation wasn't nerdy enough. We got some details on Galaxy's Edge, which everyone, I'm sure, was pumped to get. And just a couple of little comments on this. Now, Docking Bay 7 Food and Cargo, I'm assuming is the sit-down restaurant here. It says Chef Strono, or otherwise known as Cookie Tugs, Chef Strono Cookie Tugs, has traveled throughout the galaxy following his longtime gig as the chef at Maz Kanata's castle on Takodana, and brings exotic flavors and unusual dishes to his traveling diner, Tugs Grub.
I agree. There's not a lot of information about like what specific kind of restaurants we get here, but I get the sense that this will be the sit down because they're telling us about the chef and his experience and the unique flavors. What kind of food do you think is going to be here?
I don't know, but I was just going to say, do you think like even the chef is going to be in costume here? Like he's going to come out of the back and he's going to be like or at least they're going to try to give the illusion that the chef is a character here, because they're obviously bringing him up. So I'm assuming we're going to get some type of interaction with this guy, or
I would say minimally we get some kind of
very, very rarely will this guy pop up during your meal.
We're going to get pictures of Chef Tugs on the wall, meeting famous people from the Star Wars universe, perhaps. I can definitely see Disney making him a character walking around the restaurant who will be an expert on the kinds of food that you have here. We have exotic flavors, unusual dishes mentioned, so I feel like we can expect maybe some kind of like fusion, maybe some kind of Pan-Asian, something that is going to be not immediately recognizable to most visitors to Disney Hollywood Studios.
It makes sense. Like you go to Satoli there in Vandora, and they have like stuff that obviously you know what it is. It's food that you've eaten in some capacity or another, but it's kind of like a different variation. So maybe it feels a little foreign or a little exotic. They obviously have to go exotic. I mean, we're supposed to be on this outpost, right? But I just find it interesting that they bring up the chef, and for whatever reason, his little middle nickname there, Cookie. This guy specializes in cookies? I don't know, but he's gonna come out. Or I think at some point, maybe kind of how the Beast comes out I don't know if you've been at Be Our Guest, how he kind of just pops out and does his little thing. Something's going on there, but they have been adamant about it being so, realistic that I have to assume that's the case. But we'll see when it comes out. And
how do you think Docking Bay is going to work into the theme of this restaurant?
That's the other thing, is I don't see any concept. I don't really know what to expect on that.
That's the only thing that has me wondering if this is not a sit-down restaurant and is a counter service, because obviously having something fully themed to a Star Wars Docking Bay is going to be a very immersive experience, but is the experience high enough level that it's going to be a sit-down, or does Docking Bay 7, to me, feel more of a streamlined kind of counter service kind of restaurant?
Well, that's what I'm thinking, and here's what I'm gonna say about this. So the next one is Ronto Roasters. It's a recycled pod racing engine, fires up a spit of exotic meats, meticulously turned by a former smelted droid, 8DJ8. Guests can even sample some of the tasty Ronto fare. Now, when I see this reminds me, as far as, so you have this pod racing engine. But now they show a kid kind of walking up to us, so concept art can be a little tricky sometimes. But it reminds me of, like, have you ever been to Fire and Ice?
Yes.
And they have like that center grill there, and people kind of bring their plates up and they cook it for you and all that, that good stuff. I get that feel from that, so maybe that's where that's going with it and that concept, but it's very difficult to tell.
Interesting. I got more of a concept that this was just sort of a restaurant theater kind of with this pod racing engine. It certainly looks very interesting to me. I want to eat here.
Yeah, it looks really cool. I mean, geeking out just looking at it.
You could be absolutely right. It could be a central kind of cooking station based around this pod racer fire. It does have a droid in it.
Yep.
Do you see the droid anywhere in this concept art? I have not seen the...
I don't, well, you know what I don't see too is tables. I mean, I know they don't necessarily get specific on all these things, but there's what appears to be a younger child standing there waiting for his food. And I don't see, and you'll be able to see this obviously on the screen if you're watching on YouTube, I don't see anywhere to sit or anything, so I don't know. It's tough to tell if he's. I'm going to have to do some more research on this. Maybe I can find some answers, but I'm not sure if he is ordering quick. This is a quick service type of experience, or this is going to be a sit down. But I'm still leaning towards your original theory of the docking bay being the sit down. But we'll see. So they got a milk stand. We knew this was coming because obviously butterbeer has been a huge thing over at Universal, and Disney's going to have their own version somewhere or another. And it makes sense because who hasn't really wondered what whatever the heck Luke is tasting in Star Wars, the original A New Hope. Everyone has always wondered what is that? What does it taste like? So they're going to serve blue milk and green milk, I believe, because they had the green milk in the latest episode. But we don't talk about that. And this is the place to go to get your farm fresh blue milk or green milk direct from Bubble Wamba Family Farms. So I'm assuming this is going to be some type of stand in the park. I take it. I'm not quite sure.
I expect that you're going to get a lot of these signature beverages, signature foods here at Star Wars specifically, because they saw the power of things like butterbeer and other food items that already existed inside of Harry Potter, and the ability to combine food, advertising, word of mouth all together. It makes it Instagrammable. It gets free publicity. I definitely think that's the direction they're going to be going. I just don't know if Star Wars has enough specific food items that people are particularly crazy about and want to try that we're going to already know all of these things are. I can try Ronto at Ronto Roasters.
What is it?
But yeah, you got blue milk. I'm excited to see what kind of specific in-universe Star Wars culinary creations that Disney is going to come up with for me to try. We have Kat Sada's Kettle. It's going to be a market stall. This grain vendor sells the ever-popular Outpost Mix, which is a sweet and salty popcorn snack with a hint of spice. So this seems kind of like just a snack stall.
With popcorn, basically.
With popcorn.
Intergalactic popcorn, though. And probably, it said, what does it say? Salty popcorn snack with a hint of spice. I'm not quite sure what to compare. I guess, is it over in Canada where you get... Well, they have the different flavors. I think they have like a buffalo popcorn or a maple. They have all kinds of stuff going on over there. So it's going to be along those lines of just. It's kind of a big thing these days. People like that have the various flavors. My wife eats them all the time. They have all kinds of different stuff. It looks like this is going to be more towards the spicier side, I guess, more towards the buffalo or I'm trying to think. I think I even had like a teriyaki one time. Things like that. But just your basic snack stand. I don't think we're going to spend too much time on that. What else do we got here? The Den of Antiquities. I'm sorry, is that Doc Ondor's? Doc Ondor's Den of Antiquities? For those in the know, Doc Ondor is the Ithorian you seek for selling and buying rare and uniquely valued items from across the galaxy and spanning all eras. So this is obviously going to be some type of gift shop. And I wonder if it's going to be what we've seen not too long ago with, it almost looks like the makeshift, it's like merchandise, but it's not something you could get like say at a toy store around here. It's more like it's specific to Disney parks.
I get the sense that they're going for the model that they sort of developed in the Animal Kingdom, where you're going to have more handmade looking or handmade style goods, something that feels more unique. I've seen it suggest that this shop is going to be somewhat of an attraction in and of itself, if only because you're not going to have, like, say, 50 sculptures of an animal or 50 lightsabers or 50 cloaks or whatever. It's going to be set up much more in the way of this is the sort of stuff that I found that happened to be interesting.
Yeah.
And it's going to be scattered around.
Which I like. I think gives you more of like a real feeling, like you're in some kind of a foreign marketplace, like you would do if you visited a foreign country, you know?
I agree. I think it's going to have a very similar sort of feel to parts of the Morocco Pavilion, where you kind of feel like you're winding about and looking at like different unique small shops and small stalls and small traders throughout the whole different shopping experience. It does sound very cool that they're going to have all of these specific individualized items for you to buy. So I'm just sort of wondering, you buy it, you walk out, what happens? Someone walks out with another one and puts it there like in a couple of minutes?
I don't know. Which is, I mean, obviously that's something like that is going to happen, but I will say this, and I think you'll probably agree, when you go to Disney and you want, like, I go all the time, like at least once a year, and every time I always want to grab at least one thing when I'm there, but I hate getting something where I'm like, I could just go online and get this. I want something I could get specifically at the park. So hopefully these items, even if obviously they're going to sell a bunch of them there, but at least I can say, hey, you're only going to get this at Galaxy's Edge if you go to Galaxy's Edge, at least, well, until someone starts putting them on eBay. But you know what I mean. It's more unique. You want to go to foreign countries. Like I recently went to Italy and Ireland, and when I'm over there, like I'm always trying to find something. I'm like, well, I want to get something that I think is kind of like unique to like the locals and things like that. And it's hard to find. So I think this is gonna offer that. Like the AT, I think it was an AT-AT we saw. I think we were talking about one day, and that looked. Definitely had a unique, cool look to it. Like something you could put in your house as a decoration if you were a Star Wars nerd, of course. And so that is better than just say like your everyday run-of-the-mill Lego set or just action figure and things like that. So I think they're going to shy away from that to keep the theming going. Hopefully, you won't see like any like Return of the Jedi or any specific movie package type things in there that kind of throw it off. So I don't know. We'll see on that.
I agree. I lean towards thinking this is more of a high-end art store, essentially. Will everything be art in here? Probably not, but I feel like everything is going to have that unique feel. It's going to have that handcrafted look. It's going to have a higher price tag and generally not have Star Wars packaging. You're right,
Which is good.
But I think that forces them sort of to have a higher-end art store kind of vibe about it. I'm excited that it's owned by Hammerhead and Ithorian, so I know that they're going to be putting a lot of characters and makeup out in these shops.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the most interesting things. Even if I don't buy anything at this shop, I definitely am going to go in there and look at all of these unique Star Wars arts, all these unique Star Wars sculptures, and just kind of live the life on Batuu.
Yeah.
That's kind of the point.
It would be definitely fun to just even ask questions about an item. If you have someone that's, if it's legit, someone looking like an alien, or it's just completely themed out, and they're in character the entire time, which is going to be something a little different than we're used to. I mean, Disney's always been highly themed, but we've always walked into a place and there's always been a cast member there. And now you're going to see somebody in full makeup or someone that's never going to break character, and that's going to bring in the experience to a different level. Anyway, Savvy's workshop, hand-built lightsabers. Guests come to the workshop to meet with the Gatherers, a secretive group of people who have dedicated their lives to restoring balance in the galaxy by passing on their knowledge of Jedi lore and the Force. The workshop master guides guests to customize and build their own unique lightsabers and instructs them on their ways of the Jedi. Now, first thoughts on this for me? Awesome, obviously, and definitely necessary, but definitely Galaxy's Edge version of Ollivander's, or is it Ollivander's over at Universal Studios, where they're really going to bring the experience. Now, I hear that these lightsabers are going to be a way better quality. I'm sure you've seen the ones, is it Tatooine Traders when you get off of Star Tours?
Yeah, they have build your own lightsabers at Tatooine.
They're kind of tacky though, no?
And in Disney Springs. I've never built one, but they do seem a little limited, yeah.
A little I think they have like more of a plastic feel, like kind of what you get at like a well, not Toys R Us anymore, but at one point, Toys R Us or any toy store. From what I read outside of what we're looking at here, it's going to be more of a high quality. I think that the actual lightsaber handle is going to be like a good type of metal, and so hopefully, I think they're going to retail for. I saw $49.95 or $109. So I'm not sure where one begins and the other one ends, or if there's anything in the middle, or if it's just one or the other. But I will say this: $109 sounds crazy, but there's no doubt in my mind when I get down there, and if $109 is going to give me like a ridiculously nice quality lightsaber that I can design, I'm going to buy one. And I think most Star Wars fans are. So
Yes.
I think they're going to hit a home run with this one.
I've seen the 109. I've seen the 49. I believe.
Oh, you've seen? Okay, I didn't know that.
I believe the 109. I believe the point of contention is people are not sure if 109 buys you the hilt with a blade, and the blade's a 49 individually if you want to swap the blades, or if the 109 is only buying you the hilt with no blade.
So the blade going to be that like the ones you buy in the boxes where it's the solid piece of plastic with the effects, or is it going to be one of those? I'm assuming it's going to be what I just said, but it's not going to be one of those like you fling it out type of like kind of toyish version of the lightsaber, correct? Or do you know?
I don't think that's been released yet.
Okay.
I agree. This is obviously Disney's response to all of it.
Because this looks amazing on the concept art.
The concept art does look amazing. The concept art to me lends me to believe that it's not a plastic extending saber. But,
I hope not.
But
and for $109, I mean.
But no real way to know. I feel like Disney did a lot of things that feel like they're in response to Universal for X or Universal for Y. So I'm hoping Disney can definitely knock it out of the park and show Universal that they met the challenge. They did everything that Universal did. They did it better. I don't feel like they necessarily have a lot of completely original concepts about what to do here. They do have a second kind of customization thing in the Droid Depot that we'll talk about in a second.
I'm actually really excited about that, by the way. If you want to, feel free to bring us actually into that, Dan.
So the Droid Depot is going to be a character named Mubo. His workshop is going to be there in Batuu, and you can choose parts and construct your own individual astromech droid to accompany you on your journey and then take you home with you. So as far as I know, that these droids are going to be able to interact with pieces of the land.
Yes.
And sort of serve as a wand.
Yeah, not to interrupt again, but that is interesting because we just talked about the lightsaber being the wand, but then like it serves in one capacity, but then here comes the droids serving in the other capacity. The droids, honestly, total geek out is what is exciting me the most about all of this. Now I'm wondering how big they're going to be, and like how obviously they're only so customizable because there's only going to be like the default parts you can put together, but I have read that they're going to start offering different chips you can put in these things, and like to get a little more detail in that. And I think that people are going to have like a blast with the idea of this. And this is like them harping on the wand idea, and I think bring it to like another level. I think it's especially if they interact better with the environments, because the one thing I noticed this past year we went to Universal, and the wand things. The whole wand idea is great. It doesn't work that well, in my personal opinion, especially when you got to consider 6, 7, 8, 9-year-olds are going to be doing this. And then you got me as a parent, other parents trying to do it this way, do it that way. And then there's actually a guy came behind me that obviously had done it a ton of times. Oh, you got to put it right in front of the red light and do it this way. And it's like, I get that it's not the easiest thing in the world to make something like that happen, but that needs to be smoother. Like if you're gonna really enjoy that experience, that technology has got to be like on point. Like my daughter does even a semblance of what that pattern tells her to do. That spell needs to work, in other words, and I hope they nail it on this one. And it being 10 years later now since Universal's started theirs, I would think that this is going to be a major upgrade from that technology over there, but we'll see.
Yeah, there's definitely a balance for Disney to strike between how immersive and in Star Wars you're pulled and how generally fun the experience is for an average guest, including people who might not be super familiar with Star Wars. I'm excited for the droids as well. I think they speak to a different character about this Star Wars land than Disney or even Universal with Harry Potter has ever done before. And it's this concept of a living, breathing kind of land. And I think that Star Wars, with the Droid Depot especially, and this idea that there's going to be other droids just walking around and interacting with you, and recording how you do on these attractions and changing how they react to you based upon how you do. I think they're really encouraging this Star Wars as its own kind of experience. And the hotel that they're eventually going to open definitely lends itself to that. But I think they're going to promote this idea of you going to Star Wars Land, specifically to go to Star Wars Land, and how it's going to change, and how it's going to have maybe some sort of evolving narrative within the land. So these extremely detailed, extremely in-depth experiences, I definitely feel are going to lend themselves to this idea of how deep, how complicated, and how changing that this land is going to be. And when they talk about, the people that run this shop, and they create this idea of these characters that live in this space, it does make it feel like a much more lived in and real world in the Star Wars universe, and not so much as just a Star Wars land in Hollywood studios.
Yes, and that is obviously what they're going for, and obviously we all hope they achieve. Now, the last two things here are the first order cargo and the resistance supply. The first order cargo is a spaceport hangar bay, serves as a temporary base and landing spot for the first order. First order officers have brought in crates of gear, uniforms, and other supplies to win the hearts and minds of locals and visitors to Black Spire Outpost. The resistance supply, along the same lines, resistant members and local sympathizers oversee a makeshift stall that supplies resistance uniforms, pins, badges, hats, helmets, jackets, maps, tools, training supplies, food rations, and other items. Now, this is, I think, them trying to naturally, within the environment of the land, sell merch. So if you're a first order kind of guy like myself, who likes all the bad guys, you go over there and you're getting almost like recruited, quote unquote. Get this, and this is why we're good, and you can try this and have these uniforms. And then on the other side of the coin is the resistance supply, which is offering their pins, their uniforms, their badges, hats, helmets, jackets, etc. So I think it's pretty basic stuff there. But this is going to be. I can't wait for this to open, and I'm not gonna lie. I'm going to, as soon as it opens at Disneyland, I'm gonna be on YouTube watching videos. I gotta see how this goes. This is gonna be, from everything I've read, another level of immersion, another level of theming that even Disney hasn't gotten to quite yet. And once this hits, it's gonna be fun to see how they deal with anything going forward, because expectations are going to always be high after if this delivers the way they think it's going to deliver. What does it end? You know what I mean? Like what's the next thing? They're gonna bring their Marvel land at some point. That's going to have the same kind of idea. Anything they do especially if it's a land, is going to have to be as immersive, and it should be. I mean, they have the means and the technology to do this stuff. So, and the park tickets are certainly expensive enough now to justify it.
This definitely feels like a turning point for Disney and for these other upper level amusement park companies, Universal primarily, that you can build these IP brands, Star Wars, Harry Potter, eventually Nintendo World, eventually Marvel, that you have this unique experience. It's not you going to a theme park, it's you living it. I think you're going to see more like Star Wars. I think you're going to see more hotels with a built-in entrance going forward. I think you're going to see more unique in-universe style toys and products that you can buy. Going forward, the Disney parks are now being directly run by the former head of sales and head of products. And I think he's going to offer this unique blending where theme parks are going to be this whole new experience, unlike what we've ever experienced before, right now, when you go into a Universal or a Disney, you can still kind of tell how it's similar to Six Flags or similar to another amusement park. You can see where it's a better version of that. But I think going forward with Star Wars as this changing point, we're going to experience a new way of going to an amusement park where we start to live the experiences that we want to live instead of riding rides themed to IPs.
Yep, and it'll be interesting to see like how that all pans out, and like once again how it just shifts and warps expectations going forward to everything else that surrounds Disney. Like everything that's already there is going, where's it gonna? Are they gonna bring those existing attractions up to a certain level, or are they gonna go just specific IPs are gonna have this type of experience? Only time will tell there. But we are running out of time for Star Wars, so we're going to bring it over to the next segment, which we are going to call 50 Tweaks for 50 Years. And Dan, I am going to give you the opportunity to do the first tweak of the segment. We're going to do one a week for the next 50 weeks and just talk about what we think needs to be kind of fixed to, or tweaked to, which is a less ugly word, to kind of bring Disney up to par for, the big 50th anniversary. So, Dan, over to you.
The first tweak that I'm going to make the 50th anniversary is to put something besides the Pixar Film Festival over in Imagination at Epcot. You can watch these Pixar short films in the comfort of your own house with, whatever takeout that you want, with whatever alcohol that you could possibly buy at your own local store. There's just not a lot of reason for something that's available to everyone on streaming services to be an attraction at Epcot, at Disney. You could even, for a time, return to Captain EO. I feel like that would be an improvement over just showing Pixar short films, but pretty much anything would be a vast improvement over just showing Pixar short films in Epcot.
Yeah, like, if they're going to do that, like, can we get just, like, you can't watch them anywhere else, at least? Like, if you're going to give me Pixar shorts, make them specifically for that theater that utilizes, it's kind of outdated and limited technology now, but there's a little bit of things going on in there with the 4D effect type things. Bring something that is only at least, at the very least, specific to that. But I think it's just time for a new show. I think it's time for, not Honey, I Shrunk the Audience, obviously, again, but something like that where it's a reason, once again, to be in Epcot. Like, let's see a show. I don't know if you want to piggyback off Imagination, or even better, Imagination Inside Out, maybe not replace Inside Out in the Imagination Pavilion as a ride that we've heard before, but maybe put it in there and have a little 15-minute, which would be a short film by Pixar that would provide a show that we could go see that would once again incorporate an IP and make things a little more exciting for people to go check out, especially those that maybe come to Disney once in their lifetime or very, only a few times in their lifetime. They want to experience something that they've experienced at home, but in a unique way they can only do at the parks. That is the key, I think, to making these types of experiences more exciting. Like you said, watching it in your own home is kind of, it's like we talk about the merchandise. If I can get it anywhere else, why do I want to get it here and spend more money? Or why do I want to get it here and give time up where I could be spending it somewhere that has a unique experience and I can go home on Netflix and watch this?
Yeah, I think Inside Out would fit pretty well there. Inside Out would also allow them to, have some nods to the Fallen Wonders of Life Pavilion, the Cranium Command ride that happened there. The creator of Inside Out has said that he was inspired to some degree by Cranium Command. So it just kind of feels like a natural continuation of themes that existed in Epcot already while using current popular Disney IPs, which I think is kind of the best that you can ask for in Epcot going forward.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. And and I couldn't agree more. This was obviously your tweak this week, but I didn't have it on my list, but it was actually it's become so repetitive that I didn't even think about it over there, because you don't even go over there for anything. Like if you go on that, I should say, if you go to watch those movies, In my opinion, it must be either a lot of long wait times or just a slow day in general, because there's no good reason to be there. I actually went and did it, and I agree with you, Captain EO. When I caught Captain EO on its last run before it got out of there. I would rather take my daughter and my family to experience that and say, hey, at least be able to say, hey, this is something that I kind of fell in love with when I was a younger child, than go in there and say, here's some Pixar short films that literally, I don't know if they still are, but they were literally available on Netflix at one point. I actually watched them here in my house. So that is definitely a good topic to bring up, and something that Disney definitely needs to get on the ball with. But if anyone out there listening has any tweaks they would like to offer, we'd be more than happy to hear those. And once again, you can tweet us at the Backside of Water, or leave comments below at the YouTube channel. So just to finish up here, our last segment is going to be overrated and underrated. And today we are going to look at Disney dining. And I know this is probably going to be an unpopular opinion with some of you, but we've talked about this off air, and I really think that the Disney World dining is a bit overrated, and I'm going to tell you why. Now, you go into these restaurants, maybe with a dining plan, maybe without a dining plan, it's irrelevant because they're expensive, and that's fine. You're on vacation. Anywhere there's tourists, companies always take advantage of that, and it makes sense. You're on vacation, you're living free, you're looking to throw money. But the problem I have here is I hear constantly how amazing the food is at Walt Disney World. Now, there are definitely restaurants that I enjoy and that many people enjoy and all that good stuff. But if you think about it, when was the last time you went to a Walt Disney World restaurant and had your when did it knock your socks off? When did, for a $200 meal for 3 people, knock your socks off? I can't think of it. I can't remember a time. There are a few restaurants I enjoy. I enjoy Ohana. I enjoy Santa Hill Inn. Those are good restaurants, but those are restaurants I can get in my everyday life. And I can get for 1/5, I don't know, maybe I'm exaggerating a bit, 1/5 the price. And not only that, if you have the dining plan and that's the argument you want to make, you're leaving a 20% tip on a $200 bill. So one way or the other, you're throwing down way more money than you should. You're not getting the food quality. And I mean, let's face it, they're striving for a quick turnover. So you're in and out in 45 minutes to an hour, which is not exactly the dining, which if you have fast passes, I get it. But overall, the dining experience you're looking for when you're on vacation, trying to relax and take in all this great food.
I would agree with you, Tim, that what Disney is offering at Disney World is not really so much memorable sit-down food. More so in the past, not so much recently, but they have offered a lot of memorable dining experiences. And what really comes to my mind is more so the 90s era of Disney, in the late 80s, when they're introducing places like all the restaurants at Hollywood Studios, like 50s Sci-Fi, the Drive-In Diner, the 50s.
Which is the Sci-Fi?
There's the Sci-Fi Drive-In Diner, and then there's the other one. I don't know the name of the other one.
Oh, you're thinking of the one, I'm actually having a hard time thinking off the top of my head, but the one where it's kind of like, what's that restaurant that's around here?
Dick's Last Resort.
Dick's Last Resort version of Disney's kind of version of that, where your mom comes out and yells at you for not eating your vegetables. I'll get the name of it, but go back to your point.
Disney certainly offers a lot of interesting dining experiences. The 50s Drive-In, the Princess Dining at Animal Kingdom, but for the most part, I feel like there's not a lot of extremely high quality sit-down food. I feel like there's a lot of pretty interesting snacks that Disney has available. I feel like that they're always changing those up. I feel like they're always trying to make things fresh for people who visit a lot and offering new seasonal food. But in terms of like great quality food, I would say Disneyland is definitely being Disney out. And that they're really shining through more so on snacks than they are on the dining themselves.
Yeah, and I'm fine with all that. And I do agree that, like, when you go to a restaurant, you definitely get an ambiance that you can't get around here. There's no doubt about that. But I just only bring this up because I hear so often, like, this place is amazing, that place is amazing. Well, amazing, ambiance and all that stuff, it's all well and good, but for $45 a plate, or a place like Be Our Guest where I got to use 2 Disney dining points to eat there. Ambiance is great and all, but I expect a little bit of a decent quality of dining, and those foods are just, especially Be Our Guest, I brought that up, is just mediocre at best. And I feel like, from Disney's point of view, like, they should be able to fix that, because they're Disney, and they can, and I know they can make quality when they want to. And that is just something that kind of, has always kind of caught my attention when I hear people talk about it, is that these meals aren't as great as people are making them out to be, which is fine. Like, we love Disney. We love eating at the restaurants overall for the experience. But if you're gonna throw those prices at me, at least give me some type of memorable meal. Like you said, when you talk about Disney food, it's always the snacks. They have T-shirts about it. I'm here for the churros. I'm here for the dola. All that stuff's like, we all love that stuff. But do we sit there and rant and rave, or think back and say, I'm glad I went and ate at Tempranillo in Japan? It's just your run-of-the-mill Japanese steakhouse. Good time, decent food, way overpriced. And for me, that makes the restaurants overrated.
I feel like Disney has run into a sort of problem where they have multiple companies now that they've contracted out to help them run the restaurant side of things. Landry's probably most significantly. So I feel like they've sort of tied their own hands for how much they can change in a lot of situations. They can't go about and say, okay, we're going to do X, Y, or Z in all of our restaurants and change the quality. They have to sort of go about it in a more patchwork process, which I feel like is why there isn't a extreme Disney high standard to food. If Disney was running all of their own restaurants instead of giving properties over to Landry's or other companies to run, I feel like that they could make that executive from the top decision, introduce different entrees, introduce new ideas, and kind of work towards it. But as the way that Disney dining stands right now, they've complicated everything, and I don't know moving forward if they have the ability to say, all right, well, Landry's, I know that you run like X, Y, and Z restaurant, but we are Disney, we own the building, we're going to go in, we're going to change all these things at Yak and Yeti, we're going to change all of these things at Rainforest Cafe, at T-Rex. I think Disney has kind of put themselves in a trouble spot with that. Yeah.
And honestly, if you're going to eat at Disney, not to get on topic but off topic, go to Disney Springs. Especially if you have the meal plan, you're going to get way better food, in my personal opinion, for your buck, or for your meal plan points there than you're going to get anywhere else in the resorts. I mean, it's the restaurant quality is just better, and they're like, you can use a quick service, for example, at Blaze or at Deluxe Burger, and those places are right up there, in my opinion, with any other sit-down restaurant you can experience in any of the parks. So definitely check those out. But anyway, we are running out of time, and I'm sure we've angered enough people, or at least I have, with my opinion on the restaurants. But we're going to wrap it up here, and we'll be back next week with another podcast. So we'll see you all later.